Imagine for a second that you're a game developer back in the 80s. You're brilliant, you're full of ideas, but you're just stuck writing the same boring code over and over again for every single game. Well, that's not a hypothetical. That was the reality for one programmer. And his frustration, well, it sparked a revolution. This is the story of how that one guy's frustration completely changed who gets to make video games forever.
It's a question that feels pretty normal today, right? We've got so many tools out there that make it possible. But back in the 80s and 90s, this was a wild idea. Making a game meant you were writing complex, low-level code. The thought of creating something without that huge barrier? That was pretty much science fiction for most people.
So our story really starts with this man, a French programmer named Francois. In the 1980s, he was making games for everything, the Commodore 64, the Atari ST, you name it. But he kept slamming into the same incredibly inefficient wall, again and again.
He wasn't just tired of the daily grind. He saw a smarter way to do things. Every time he'd start a new game, he was literally rewriting the exact same code for basic stuff, like how to put a character on the screen or how to play a sound effect. So his thought was actually pretty simple, but it was profound. Why not build one single language that just handles all that stuff automatically? That little idea was the seed for everything that came next.
Okay, so Lionet's first big move was on those legendary 16-bit home computers that really defined an entire era. We're talking the Atari ST and the Commodore Amiga. He decided his first step was to create a super-powered, game-focused version of the basic programming language to make creating games way faster and just more intuitive.
And here's what's so fascinating about this. STS Basic wasn't just born from a need for efficiency. It was born out of pure frustration. See, Lionet absolutely hated the Atari ST's built-in operating system, this graphical interface called GEM. He just thought it was clunky and slow. So his first move was to create a language that completely bypassed it, giving developers direct, lightning-fast control over the hardware just to make games. After STS was a big success, Lionet's next move was a massive leap forward. In 1990, he created Amos Basic for the Commodore Amiga. Right away, he ditched the old-school line numbers, which made the code so much cleaner. But the real magic? That was all under the hood. He completely rewrote the engine to talk directly to the Amiga's legendary custom hardware chips, which were way better for graphics and sound. This made Amos incredibly fast, and with AMOL, a whole language just for animation, it became an absolute creative powerhouse.
So after basically conquering the 16-bit scene, Lionet turned his attention to the PC. But he wasn't just going to port Amos. No, he was thinking much, much bigger. He wanted to take the next logical step and just remove text-based coding from the process altogether. So think about that. How do you even do that? How do you give someone the power to create all the rules for a game, collisions, scoring, how enemies behave, without them ever typing a single line of code? Well, his solution was totally revolutionary.
He teamed up with another programmer, Yves Lamoureux, and together they built Click and Play. It came out in 1994 for Windows, and there was nothing else like it. No more typing commands. Everything, and I mean everything, was driven by the mouse with a completely new kind of interface.
Now, the core idea here was something called the event editor, and the inspiration behind it was just brilliant. Lionet had seen accountants building these incredibly complex models using Excel spreadsheets, and he thought, hey, if they can manage all that logic in a grid without calling it programming, I can do the same thing for games. The result was this visual system where you just click on an object, pick a condition like if it collides with another object, and then pick an action like destroy it. It was pure programming, just cleverly disguised as filling out a form.
And Click and Play was really just the beginning. Its success kicked off this period of super rapid evolution. Lionet and Lamoureux started releasing more and more powerful tools, and eventually, they even formed their own company to guide their vision into the future.
Just look at this timeline. The pace of innovation is just incredible. After Click and Play, you get Click and Create in '96, which was published by Corel. It got rid of a lot of the early limitations and added things like scrolling. Then that was followed by the Games Factory, and then Multimedia Fusion in '98. Each new version just added more power and more professional features, moving way beyond simple games into really complex applications. So as the software world started to shift in the late '90s, Lionet and Lamoureux made a really bold move. They started their own company called ClickTeam, and they became some of the first pioneers in selling software directly to people online. This meant they could control their own destiny, and they built this amazing, dedicated community that is still going strong today.
All right, so why does any of this matter now? Well, because that core idea behind Click and Play, that amazing visual event editor, it didn't just fade away, it evolved. It turned into a modern game engine that's been used to create some of the most successful, most iconic indie games of the last 20 years.
The legacy is just staggering. I mean, the absolute cultural phenomenon that is Five Nights at Freddy's. The brilliant, mind-bending puzzle game Baba Is You. The breakout hit, The Escapists. These are not small-time projects. They are critically acclaimed, massive commercial successes, and they were all built using the direct descendants of that original vision from 1994. It's the ultimate proof that making something accessible doesn't mean you have to sacrifice power.
Francois Lionet's whole journey was about lowering the barrier to entry. He went from complex machine code to an easier language like BASIC, and then finally to a visual, codeless editor. Every single step empowered more and more people to bring their ideas to life. So it leaves us with one last question. What's next? In an age of AI and even more sophisticated tools, what's going to be the next giant leap forward that puts the power to create in even more hands?